Arthur, a cruel king that rules over the world. Throughout his ascent to the throne, he destroyed his rivals, incinerating entire cities with nuclear fire and committing unspeakable atrocities, all striving for domination. One day, however, he finds himself contemplating the evil deeds he has been guilty of. A deep sense of guilt is eating away at him, and in the very next moment, he falls ill with a strange sickness. As he slowly descends into the abyss, a voice echoes through the darkness, giving him a second chance, telling him not to squander it this time. A few moments later, Arthur opens his eyes to two people looking down at him. The man nearby is Reynold, who happens to be Arthur's father, and the woman beside him is Alice, his mother. Though they don't actually expect their newborn to comprehend their words, they're overjoyed to welcome him into the world. Gradually, Arthur comes to the realization that these two are indeed his parents, and that he was just born only a minute ago. For the most part, he's fairly content, but he can't get used to the idea of being a baby again, not quite being able to talk, and soiling his diaper without any control would mean that he will have no autonomy at all, except for his head, which is huge. Then his attention is captured by something even more bizarre than his current situation. As his father pounds with his fists, he breaks up a very large stone, leaving Arthur in awe that his dad has such a powerful technique. But he is not paying attention, and a rock falls on his head. Alice, who had already known that such a thing might happen, rushes over and starts using magic to heal his wound, and he is delighted at her touch. From what he has seen, Arthur notices that there are two things that Reynolds needs to pay attention to when he goes home on the hunt. When the hunt is over, Reynolds heads home with a need for that warm welcome hug, but then he remembers he is still in boar blood. However, as the months pass, Arthur's baby body grows strong enough to walk about on his own, and his first task is to go over to a mirror and peer at himself with such curiosity that his parents think he's watching himself fall into the floor. He's very curious about himself, but at the same time, he's extremely cautious when it comes to people trying to assassinate him. Later in the day, when Alice is laying him down for his nap, the moment she steps out of the room, Arthur opens his eyes, tosses his blanket aside, maneuvers carefully to climb down and get out of the crib, but as she gets absorbed in washing dishes, Arthur slowly and steadily crawls across the room to the far end without Alice noticing. Even so, no one here ever resorted to nuking cities to gain control, for the development of this continent is called Dickan and divided into three kingdoms: the Darv Kingdom, a subterranean kingdom of dwarves; the Alanwar Kingdom, inhabited by elves living deep in the forest; the Sapin Kingdom, a kingdom of humans ruled by a king. There are two types of ways in which people can use magic: augmentation, which involves circulating mana throughout the body, giving the user immense strength, heightened defense, and enhanced agility; or conjuring, which is limited to those who are skilled in the arts of conjuring. However, conjurers can send their mana outside of their bodies to manipulate and control any phenomenon they like, while most people start to manifest their mana at puberty, and by directing their mana flow through a process called mana core, they can take control of the mana and eventually become mages. Arthur finds this easy to comprehend because in his past life he came to power by absorbing the natural Kai energy within himself, so he focuses all his energies to test if he too can trigger a response. And as he picks him up, he notices there's something different about him. Arthur wonders if he's noticed the mana within him or not, but he's relieved he's safe and unharmed.
2 years have passed, and one day Alice finds Reynolds and Arthur outside, and it seems that Reynolds is teaching Arthur some swordplay, which looks pretty interesting, but Arthur seems completely engaged in it, and Alice is furious that Reynolds would let a 2-year-old carry something that could be so dangerous as a stick. His mother decides to take Arthur out for the day to show him around the town. And Arthur is particularly excited about this because it will give him a chance to gather valuable information about this world. He's able to gauge the level of this nation's technology just by examining the weapons being sold to the general public. She believes that Arthur's an adventurous nature has been passed on from Reynolds and knows that he's going to need to be out on his own, finding his own way to do his things someday, and she'll support him in that way if he's really happy. Seeing his father practice the magic inspires Arthur to go get some training in himself. Arthur is interested in seeing the applications of magic up close and personal again, so he eagerly watches his father Reynolds go from the window and circulate mana, and rocks begin to fly up from the ground. And Reynolds makes it seem like it's the greatest thing in the world, but in reality it is pretty pitiful. Watching his father display such power inspires Arthur to go and get some training in himself. As they pass the bookshelf, however, Arthur begins whining, but Alice tells him that it's nap time and there isn't any books by now. But Arthur has recently discovered a legendary pout that he has gotten pretty good at, and with Alice's help, he reads his book after all, and as he is all by himself, he starts practicing his pout at his manor, and his skill has increased over the past 2 years. He was able to gather various pieces of mana throughout his body, which enabled him to create a manor within himself, and although this was very tiring, this was absolutely worth it, because now, with a little more concentration, he should be able to cast his first spell. His parents were outside at the time of the explosion, and it was so loud that his back was badly burned. But aside from that, he and Alice are fine, and soon realized that Arthur wasn't hurt when the house exploded, he was the one who did it. He's only 3 years old, but using magic shouldn't be possible until he's at least 12, and yet Arthur is already a near master in the art of magic. He stands tall and proud and looks at his parents, but he forgets that the house is collapsing around him, and when 2 roof beams fall towards him, he runs out of his own little legs. Luckily, both Alice and Reynolds rush in to save him. Alice throws herself over him to protect him, and Reynolds uses his magic to block all the falling bits and pieces and save both of them. Arthur is kind of stunned. It's the first time someone has ever put themselves in danger to save him. But in his old life, he couldn't have done anything like that. He was supposed to have been a cruel king, and these days he trains with his dad, Reynolds. Reynolds suggests Arthur should give gauntlets a try, but Arthur has been a master of the sword his whole life, so he's not about to change his main weapon. Now seeing how adamant, because he realizes that Reynolds is rather too big for Arthur to train himself, and to spice things up a little, he decides to improve his sword with mana, and to his complete surprise, Arthur does just the same thing and slices through Reynolds' sword with ease. So he gets the idea to take Arthur to find a professional trainer and heads inside to talk to Alice about it. That's why Reynolds thinks it's important for him to have a skilled mentor, since during their training, Arthur actually sliced clean through his mana-infused sword, and he's still just a toddler, so just imagine what he might be able to do in the years to come. Alice can't argue against Arthur's extraordinary talent, but she still despises the thought of sending him off to a school in the city all by himself. Because they can't seem to agree, she and Reynolds end up bickering about it for several minutes. Arthur, tired of all the back and forth, interrupts and suggests that they could simply go with him to the city. That way, he'd still get his teacher, and his parents wouldn't have to worry about leaving him on his own. The following day, a carriage shows up to take them into the city. Luckily, just before Arthur faints out, Darren comes to his rescue, jolting Arthur away from Angela and introducing himself in the process. And of course, his mum watches it all, smiling from ear to ear. After the introductions are made, it's time for the group to embark on their journey. They all get on board the carts and head off. After spending much of the day on the road, they stop to rest and eat and set up a makeshift camp, but as soon as they settle, a pack of wolves attacks them, charging in blindly until they're easily overwhelmed by the expert adventurers who quickly dispatch them in mere moments. Arthur finds the whole scene quite fascinating. It's the first time he's seen real combat in this world. Just as Alice notices a little wound on Reynolds' arm, she says that she'll heal it for him, but just before she does, Jasmine blurts out, "Hold on a second." The rest of the group immediately gathers around Alice to keep watch, since healers with her abilities are extremely rare in this world. If anyone were to witness her using healing magic, she could easily become a target because of it. With Reynold fully healed by Alice, the group resumes their previous activities. However, Adam feels like stretching his limbs before he gets some sleep. He's heard plenty about Arthur's strength and wants to witness it firsthand. This is nothing more than a friendly test of skill. Adam instructs Arthur to prepare himself, already channeling mana into his spear. Without hesitation, Arthur follows suit, doing the same with his own weapon. As the game begins, Arthur concentrates the magic on his feet. Just as he is going to hit the ball at Adam, he suddenly disappears and reappears behind him, and as he does so, his short, clumsy little toddler legs betray him as he skids on the ground and loses his balance. Then Arthur and Adam proceed to spar, with Arthur still a toddler. He can't compete with the strength of an experienced adventurer. The others catch him and begin scolding Adam for nearly injuring Arthur, but Adam defends himself, stating he couldn't help it because Arthur was too strong. He suspects that Reynold must have trained him in some kind of super soldier program. Jasmine, however, isn't one to take no for an answer, and based on the look in her eyes, she'll most likely continue pestering him until he gives in. At some point, he may have no choice but to teach her, for it's a technique he perfected in his former life. He is amazed at the amount of knowledge he is absorbing from them, so he decides to help Jasmine so she can learn this skill too, which entails giving your feet some magic and also getting your wind magic working to be able to run fast. Soon after, Arthur is reading a book of magic inside the carriage, and for some reason Jasmine is there as well, all the time watching him, not by accident. It's pretty obvious she has feelings for Arthur, since she does not normally go out of her way to get to know people. Soon after, everyone gets back in the carriages, and they continue through the journey. But as Arthur reads his book, the carriage is suddenly attacked by bandits. At some point, they'll be outnumbered, and the bandit leader orders Reynold to be put in the carriage, leaving him severely injured, and then demands to know that Arthur take Alice and leave as far as they can go, or else she will be their next target. While Reynolds holds off the bandit leader, a couple of the remaining bandits move towards Arthur and Alice, but Adam and Jasmine throw some daggers at them and knock them out of the way, creating a path for Arthur to escape with Alice. Arthur figures they've put enough distance between them to be safe, but he couldn't have been more wrong. A bandit is observing them from a cliff above, and this one actually knows how to use magic. He casts a wind spell aimed directly at them. The wind blast knocks Arthur back, so he's going to fall off the cliff, and with his toddler body, that's basically a death sentence. But if he's going to die, he's not going out alone. So as he is falling off the cliff, he takes the knife he got from Jasmine and throws it at the bandit. The knife strikes the bandit,
and the string winds tightly around his ankle. That gives Arthur the chance to yank him off the cliff as well. The adventurers quickly try to use magic to catch Arthur, but by that point he's already fallen too far for them to reach, which means Arthur is as good as doomed. As he plummets toward what seems like certain death, Arthur reflects on his life, and even though the end is near, he feels an odd sense of calm, knowing he was able to protect the family that means so much to him. He finally gets why that man in his previous life was so determined to safeguard his loved ones. Arthur didn't even hesitate when it came to sacrificing himself for his mother. And while he doesn't regret what he did, a part of him still wishes he could have stayed with them just a little longer. After taking that deadly fall, Arthur somehow drags himself from the river and stumbles into a cave. But just then, he finds himself staring straight into the eyes of a horrifying creature. However, Arthur regrets his decision to take his shelter here and tries to sneak attack the beast, but the beast easily repels him in midair and asks him to relax, saying it is not evil and it only wants to be his friend. But Arthur doesn't believe a single word of it. In any case, he is still seriously wounded, and his wounds won't heal unless he eats something. Arthur hesitates, unsure, but the moment he takes a bite of the first fruit, he's surprised to find that it's actually delicious, and his mind races with questions. But the monster interrupts, telling him to stop crying and only eat the fruits.
After he has eaten himself full, Arthur turns to the monster and asks him if he knows what has happened to his family. The monster tells Arthur that it can't go and check on his family since it won't be able to get out of the cave, but it has an ability to see far distances. So it makes a screen and shows Arthur that his parents have managed to take down the rest of the bandits and are safe and sound.